December 19th, 2025 is already behind us. The date everyone circled. The moment the world paused, stared at the sky, and then quietly moved on. The object known as 3I Atlas passed through our cosmic neighborhood, missed Earth by hundreds of millions of kilometers, and appeared to do absolutely nothing. No signals, no confrontation, no dramatic reveal, just a silent flyby before continuing its journey outward. To the public, that was the end of the story. To scientists, it was the beginning of something far more unsettling. While news crews dismantled telescopes and headlines faded, astrophysics departments around the world shifted into overdrive. Because the most important question was never whether 3I Atlas would stop. It was whether stopping was ever the plan. A growing number of researchers are now asking a radically different question. What if this object was never meant to visit us, but to pass through us? And more disturbingly, what if it wasn't just an object at all? In the last 48 hours, several new datasets have dropped quietly into academic archives. Updated radio scans, revised size estimates, and a proposal circulating among elite research groups that sounds less like astronomy and more like science fiction. A proposal that doesn't ask how to observe 3I Atlas, but how to use it. The idea comes from Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb, a figure already known for challenging orthodox explanations of interstellar visitors. This time, he's not asking whether 3I Atlas is artificial. He's asking something even more provocative. What if interstellar objects like this are already doing the hard work of traveling between stars for us? Humanity's fastest spacecraft, the Voyager probes, have been traveling for nearly 50 years. At their current speed, they will need tens of thousands of years just to approach another star system. Civilization itself may not survive that long. Meanwhile, 3I Atlas is tearing through the solar system at roughly 60 kilometers per second, moving faster than anything we've ever built. So, why chase the impossible, Loeb asks, when a faster ride is already passing by? This reframes the entire encounter. Suddenly, 3I Atlas is no longer just something to fear, study, or dismiss. It becomes infrastructure, a natural or artificial, say, transit system moving along a pre-existing galactic route. But before we imagine hitching rides to the stars, we have to face something deeply uncomfortable, because the latest measurement suggests this object is far smaller than many expected, roughly 1 kilometer across, and that creates a serious problem, because an object that small should not be behaving like this. And once you understand why, the story takes a much darker turn. If 3I Atlas is too small to survive this journey naturally, then what exactly is holding it together? And why is it leaving right now? For months, astronomers argued about the true size of 3I Atlas. Some believed it was massive, hidden behind dust and gas. Others thought it was a thin shard or hollow structure. Now, a new paper combining motion data and non-gravitational acceleration has narrowed the estimate dramatically. The conclusion is shocking. The core of 3I Atlas appears to be only about 1 kilometer in diameter. That's not a planet killer. That's not even a large asteroid by cosmic standards. And yet, it is producing enormous amounts of gas and debris, forming a bright coma and tail that stretch across space. Under known physics, that behavior doesn't make sense. A natural icy body that small, venting that violently, should be tearing itself apart. The structural stress alone should fracture it into fragments. But 3I Atlas remains intact, stable, controlled, which forces scientists into an uncomfortable corner. Either this object is composed of an unknown, incredibly strong material, far denser and more resilient than typical cometary ice, or the venting we're observing isn't passive at all, it's intentional. If the gas and dust aren't sublimation, but exhaust, then the implications explode outward. A 1 kilometer structure with propulsion is not debris, it's a vessel, something built, something engineered. That brings us back to Avi Loeb's proposal. If this object truly is moving faster and more efficiently than anything humanity has ever launched, then intercepting it becomes more than a curiosity. It becomes a strategic opportunity. Not to land on it, that would require impossible energy, but to interact with it, to tag it, to mark it, to attach something to it, even briefly, a probe, a message, a time capsule, proof that we were here. Loeb even suggested half-seriously that human DNA could be carried outward on such a mission, a symbolic act, but one that reveals the deeper motivation. If these objects form a network, then missing this chance might mean remaining trapped in our solar system indefinitely. But here's the terrifying catch. You can't safely grab something moving at 60 kilometers per second. Any interception attempt risks destruction. Any miscalculation could turn a scientific breakthrough into a planetary disaster. That's why alternative ideas are circulating, using powerful lasers to etch information onto its surface as it passes, or launching ultralight interceptors designed to embed themselves briefly before disintegrating. This isn't exploration anymore, it's desperation. Because if 3i Atlas is leaving, and all signs say it is, then whatever it carries with it is leaving too. And we may already be too late to stop it. But what if 3i Atlas didn't just come here to pass by? What if it came here to drop something off? One of the earliest fears surrounding 3i Atlas was contamination. Spectral analysis of its coma revealed compounds like hydrogen cyanide, toxic molecules, dangerous to life. For a moment, people worried Earth was being dusted with something harmful. That fear has mostly been dismissed. According to updated models, the solar wind acts as a shield, pushing fine particles away from Earth. Anything small enough to drift toward us is swept aside. Anything large enough to survive re-entry is statistically unlikely to hit us. But that reassurance comes with a critical assumption. It assumes the material is passive. If the fragments released by 3i Atlas are inert dust or ice, then yes, the danger is minimal. But if even a fraction of that debris is controlled, encapsulated, or maneuverable, then all bets are off. And here's where things get uncomfortable. The same paper that estimated the object's size also mentioned something odd. The momentum change observed might not be due to gas alone. It could be dominated by the ejection of fragments, not vapor, but chunks. Fragments. If this were a transport system, a carrier, then fragment release would not be a malfunction. It would be deployment. Timing matters. Those ejections occurred near perihelion, when 3i Atlas was closest to Earth. Exactly when you would want to release sensors, probes, or samples. Now, look at what's happened since. Astronomers have reported unusual meteor activity, slow-moving, orange fireballs entering the atmosphere at shallow angles. Not head-on impacts, but objects catching up to Earth. That implies similar orbital velocities. At the same time, aviation forums and satellite operators have quietly reported GPS glitches, unexpected atmospheric drag, and small but persistent anomalies in low Earth orbit. Nothing dramatic, nothing conclusive, but enough to raise eyebrows. If even a handful of meter-scale objects separated from 3i Atlas and adjusted their trajectories, they could hide easily. Dark, cold, parked in stable orbits, Lagrange points, high-altitude paths we don't monitor closely. The main body moves on, the payload stays behind. Suddenly, the silence from 3i Atlas makes sense. If its job is complete, there's no reason to broadcast. The interesting activity wouldn't be with the departing object. It would be with what it left behind, which forces a chilling question. Are we still watching the right target? If the real mission wasn't the flyby, but the deployment, then where are the fragments now? And what are they doing? Radio silence has been one of the most confusing aspects of this encounter. The Allen Telescope Array spent hours listening directly toward 3i Atlas, filtering out millions of signals. After removing satellites, terrestrial interference, and known noise sources, only a few hundred unexplained hits remained. They were dismissed. No clear message, no obvious beacon. But buried in that analysis was a quiet detail that changed everything. The team established an upper limit. If 3i Atlas is transmitting, it's doing so at extremely low power, somewhere between 10 and 100 watts. That's nothing. That's the output of a household light bulb. An interstellar probe screaming across space wouldn't broadcast loudly. It would whisper, short bursts, directed beams, minimal energy, minimal detection. And that raises another question. What if Earth was never the intended receiver? Look at where 3i Atlas is heading next. Jupiter. On March 16, 2026, the object will pass within roughly 53 million kilometers of the gas giant. In cosmic terms, that's close. Close enough to interact with Jupiter's immense magnetic field, one of the strongest natural antennas in the solar system. If you wanted to upload data, Jupiter would be the perfect relay, which means the signal might not be for us at all. It might be for the network. This reframes the entire situation. Earth becomes a sampling point, not a destination. The object passes through the inner system, gathers information, then heads outward to transmit what it learned. And that explains why the discussion among governments has quietly shifted. Not from curiosity to interception, not from observation to defense. Some internal documents now mention kinetic options, impacts, lasers, energy disruption, not to destroy the object for safety, but potentially to prevent transmission. Because once 3I Atlas reaches Jupiter's magnetic environment, whatever data it carries could be amplified and sent far beyond our reach. The messenger would be gone, and whatever receives that message would know we exist. So, the real countdown isn't December 19th, it's March 16th. And the question is no longer what is 3I Atlas, but who is it reporting to? After Jupiter, the trajectory of 3I Atlas becomes even more unsettling. Updated orbital models show it heading toward a specific region, not random deep space, but a structured destination associated with the Hyades cluster. Within that cluster lies Epsilon Tauri, an aging giant star surrounded by dense debris fields and complex gravitational structures. A system rich in material, a system that, if advanced engineering were possible, would make an ideal hub. If interstellar transport routes exist, this would be a junction, a place to refuel, to construct, to coordinate. Seen through that lens, 3I Atlas stops looking like a lone wanderer and starts looking like a courier. It went out, it collected, it returned. And what did it collect? Data, samples, environmental measurements, possibly biological material. If that information reaches its destination, then the galaxy won't just know we exist. It will know what we are made of. That's the terrifying implication. But there's another side to this story. Because if a galactic highway exists, then humanity has been living beside it without realizing. These objects may have been passing for millions of years, unnoticed, unrecognized, mistaken for rocks. And now, for the first time, we're seeing the traffic. That presents a choice. Fear it, attack it, try to shut it down, or understand it. Avi Loeb's message in a bottle idea suddenly feels less naive. If this object is leaving anyway, then sending something with it might be the only way to say we were here, not as prey, but as participants. But messages cut both ways. Once sent, they can't be recalled. So, when the message finally reaches its destination, will it be an introduction or an invitation? March 16th, 2026 is approaching fast. That is the moment 3I Atlas brushes past Jupiter and either fades into deep space or lights up the network we didn't know existed. If governments act, it will happen quietly. A flash, a disruption, then silence, and the public may never be told exactly what was intercepted, or why. If they don't act, then the transmission goes through, and whatever lies beyond our solar system will know that Earth is inhabited, technological, and aware. That's not necessarily a threat. It could be an opportunity. We are trapped by distance. Our rockets are slow. Our lives are short. Interstellar travel, as we imagine it, may never be practical. But if the universe already has moving platforms, natural or artificial, then the problem changes completely. We don't need to build the highway. We need to learn how to merge onto it. The anomalies we're seeing, the fragments, the atmospheric effects, the subtle disruptions, might not be attacks. They might be tests, compatibility checks, quiet observations. The real question isn't whether something is watching us, it's whether we're ready to be noticed. Because if 3I Atlas is part of a cycle, then it won't be the last. Another will come, and another. And eventually, the interaction won't be silent. It will be deliberate. The end of this story hasn't happened yet. It's accelerating. And whatever comes next won't feel like science fiction anymore. Because if 3I Atlas is a transport, then sooner or later, something else will arrive to see who answered the signal. The conversation surrounding 3I Atlas has moved into a far more serious phase. Publicly, it is still described as a harmless interstellar passerby. Privately, however, scientists and defense analysts are asking a very different question. What if letting it leave is the real mistake? New internal discussions focus on interception, not for curiosity, but for containment. Research papers that once explored observation techniques now analyze disruption methods. Kinetic impactors, electromagnetic interference, and high-powered laser arrays are being quietly re-examined. That alone should give us pause. You don't plan countermeasures for a rock unless you suspect it may be carrying something valuable or dangerous. The concern is not that 3I Atlas might attack. The concern is that it might report. If the object is collecting data, then its upcoming encounter with Jupiter is not just a gravitational maneuver. Jupiter's immense magnetic field can act as a natural amplifier, capable of boosting even faint transmissions. A low-power signal that would be undetectable from Earth could suddenly become loud once it reaches that environment. This explains why lasers have entered the conversation. Officially, they are described as tools for surface analysis or marking. Unofficially, a laser powerful enough to interact with an object moving at extreme velocity could blind sensors, scramble electronics, or permanently damage internal systems. The same technology used to write a message could also erase one. This has created a sharp divide. One group of scientists sees 3I Atlas as humanity's first real bridge beyond the solar system. A chance to learn how interstellar transport actually works. Another group sees it as a security liability, an unknown machine possibly carrying biological or strategic data about Earth. Both sides agree on one thing: time is running out. Once the object reaches Jupiter, the window closes. After that, it escapes forever. Any decision, observation, interference, or silence, this must happen before March 16th, 2026. And that deadline has transformed a scientific mystery into something far more unsettling. A silent standoff. No announcements, no alarms, just calculations being run in secure rooms, and contingency plans being drafted for an object that may never acknowledge us at all. Because if this truly is a probe, then the most dangerous outcome is not invasion, it's evaluation. But if Earth was only one stop along the way, then the most important question isn't what we do to 3I Atlas, it's where it's going next. Trajectory refinements now point toward a specific destination, a massive stellar system centered around the star Epsilon Tauri. This is not a random exit path. Epsilon Tauri sits within a dense cluster, rich in material, gravitational energy, and long-term stability. From an engineering perspective, it is exactly where you would place an interstellar hub. Seen this way, 3I Atlas begins to resemble a courier rather than a wanderer. It entered our system on a precise vector, harvested energy from the sun, passed Earth close enough to sample the inner environment, and then accelerated outward. The timing of its mass ejections, near closest approach, raises a disturbing possibility. Those fragments may not be debris at all. They could be sensors, capsules, or independent probes designed to remain behind. That would explain the silence. A system built to observe does not announce itself. It records, it catalogs, and it leaves. If even microscopic samples were collected from Earth's upper atmosphere, then our planet has already been archived elsewhere. Our chemistry, our biology, our technological signatures, all preserved beyond our reach, which means the real moment of contact may already be behind us. This reframes humanity's choices. Destroying the messenger will not erase the message. Hiding now may be meaningless, and broadcasting blindly could invite consequences we don't yet understand. There is also another possibility, one less frightening but equally profound. These objects may not be scouts or weapons. They may be infrastructure, part of a vast galactic transit system that has existed for millions of years, passing silently between stars while young civilizations look up and wonder. If that is true, then Earth has just discovered the cosmic highway. And like any highway, it brings a choice. We can fear it, block it, or try to learn how to use it. The universe may not be asking whether we are intelligent. It may be asking whether we are mature, because if 3I Atlas is part of a repeating route, it will not be the last. Another will come. And the next one may arrive closer, slower, or openly. The story doesn't end with a flyby. It begins with a realization. We are no longer isolated, and whatever comes next will depend entirely on how we respond to the door that has just quietly opened.